All right, everybody, welcome. This is the Kubernetes 1.8 release Burndown meeting for Tuesday, September 19th, 2017. I am Jay Singer-DeMars, release team lead, and I'll be running this operation here today. The meeting minutes, should you want to follow on after the fact, are at bit.ly/Kates18 release. And we'll go ahead and get started. As everybody here hopefully knows, we are in an extended code freeze, and that was to take care of a lot of upgrade tests that were failing due to infrastructure and other issues. We're in the process of trying to resolve that. So much of what we're going to discuss is predicated on us trying to get that fixed so that we can release the merge queue for 1.9 at the end of this week, and also cut the release candidate. So timeline for this week, we're just going to go, since we're doing daily burndowns, I'm going to do this day by day. So we're only going to worry about today, which is that we need to begin running upgrade and other tests with owner SIG's supervision for real-time debugging and fixes. Right now, there's a lot of work being done on those upgrade tests, but I believe we are still missing some owner SIG participation, which we're going to talk about that in a bit. Antoine has been nice enough to step in and help triage testing and SIG ownership and set up a Kanban board. We'll show in a moment about status of those. Sen, we're going to set up downgrade testing infrastructure. Have you got an update on that? Sen, are you here? I thought I saw you.
We've upgrade tests, or downgrade tests, excuse me, are running right now on the dashboard. I don't know who set those up or what the current maintenance status is, but they are at least running, and I've linked to them lower down in our report.
Okay, fantastic. Great. My goal, which I considered very ambitious when I wrote this last week, was to lower issue count today to lower than 45. I am very pleased to report that we're at 42, not significantly lower than the goal, but still lower than the goal, so that's a triumph. Tomorrow is even more aggressive. I think that's probably going to be the one that slips if any does. So, need to help here to just everybody. If you follow the issues, please contact your SIGs that you're a part of and make sure that we're getting things either pulled out of the 1.8 milestone if that's relevant, or if it truly is a release blocking issue that needs to be addressed before 1.8 goes out, that you apply all methods available to you to try and get that tackled. So make sure that there's PRs supporting that work. If you have a PR that's for any kind of testing fix or otherwise, just let me know and I'll make sure that it gets merged. And if it's a cherry pick that we need to do for 1.7 for testing infrastructure, Adam Worrell is handling that while our current 1.7 release branch manager is out. So moving on, any questions on today's goals before we move on? Okay. So timeline for next week. Don't go into great detail here, but essentially bottom line, we need to get release 1.8 out on September 27th. That day we'll have an all-day drop-in release room at this Zoom. I'll leave that open all day so we can just meet up ad hoc as needed for that. Metrics review, I did not actually do the deltas, but pretty much everything is trending down for the most part. We have 42 open issues in the milestone. The release blocking as labeled are 3, although we all know that everything in the milestone currently is release blocking. And we are working on getting more insight into those. I have below broken those out by SIG, so oh, that's good. Somebody just changed it to 40. That's exciting. And right now, open PRs in the milestone is 30 versus the 506 that are closed. We have 1 important soon and 1 test blocking linked. I believe those are still valid. They were as of 2 hours ago. Submit queue has 3 failing tests currently. the release 1.8 and master blocking are not looking very good right now. There's a lot of failing tests, but that's all being talked about in the release channel. So stay tuned on that. Here's where we need some help. This is the breakout by SIG of all the issues. Obviously, this is going down by the minute, but if you click on any of the links in the document, which I will share here in just a moment so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see, where is, I always lose the share screen button. There it is. Here we go. This, so this is the list of, in the meeting minutes for this meeting by SIG. You can click on these and it will magically take you to a list of all the issues, the 1.8 milestone owned by that particular SIG. So if you are a member of one of these SIGs, or you have friends, or you have connections to any of these SIGs, please make sure that these are getting tracked in the SIG meetings. Today is a very heavy SIG day. There's a lot of SIG meetings today. SIG Node is happening, I think, right now, which is unfortunate. SIG testing, or I think SIG Windows, SIG Docs, and whatnot, all happening today. So if there's a SIG meeting you're in and you can bring these up on the agenda, please do so. That is a huge help. And no new exception requests this meeting. Branch updates, the fast forward was done as of 8:44 this morning by Adam. We'll know more about branch health once all the tests and triage is done. Eric, can you go through test failure, triage, and resolution update?
Yeah, so Antoine has been nice enough to create a GitHub project for us that tracks all of the open issues. This sort of is not super different than the list we put in the last meeting, but just sort of shows what is in progress, what has PRs that are going to be merging and hopefully fixing the upgrade tests. The GCE alpha failures are still happening from yesterday. I still need to go and figure out and dig through kubelet logs and figure out what the actual issue is and which SIG needs to be assigned to it. And I'm holding off creating an issue to do that. The GCE, GCI alpha features are passing though, so it's not, hopefully it's not a giant issue that can be resolved. The downgrade test has started running, as mentioned before, so we now have a panel that shows all the downgrade tests. Those have been somewhat flaky so far. I haven't looked into this, and I guess I will be owning this, or owning the at least tracking of downgrade test flaking, since it's on one of my boards. So I will try to look into that and figure out with the correct people what the status of the downgrade tests are, or if they are expected to be failed in the SKU test, or if that's evident of something that's actually a problem. Somebody else put in here the 1.8 GCE, GCI and GCE serial 1.8 is timing out. I have not been tracking the 1.8 items, just as a FYI to most people. I traditionally, this role is the master branch testing. So, and the branch manager manages the actual release tests, the upgrade tests for that item. I hope that nobody is super shocked by that. And if they are, then that's probably bad. So if somebody else has, whoever is the branch manager, if they can sort of talk about the 1.8 upgrade, that'd be great, or the 1.8 board. It should be on the same, it should be the same branch at this point, or same content as master. So that would probably be indicative of a upgrade or an infra failure rather than specific test failing.
Okay. Adam, are you in the meeting? And did you catch all that? I see Sen. Hey, Sen, is Adam with you?
No. I think he said he will be and cannot make it today.
Okay. So my request, Eric, since that's out of your duties, can you talk to Adam about that just so that he knows, since he's figuring this out as he goes as well?
Yeah.
Thanks. That helps.
I would say that it probably makes sense to hold off on lifting code freeze until we have stabilized at least the blocking branch jobs. Because otherwise we're sort of flying blind.
Once we come out of code freeze, those are the jobs that Aniko looks at when it cuts a release. So the 1.8 board, like we're looking at the master board while we're in code freeze, and then once we go out of code freeze, we should start be paying attention to the 1.8 board.
Yeah.
Correct.
We just want to make sure that those tests aren't failing because of infrastructural issues. Because that would kind of suck to go into code freeze and then, or come out of code freeze and then we suddenly have a lot of work to do on that end. So I'll follow up with that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Any questions for Eric before we move on to test infra?
I missed some context. Like, is there like a CI job start to failing due to some like setup issue?
I don't know. I haven't been investigating failures on that board.
Yeah. Okay. I can take a look. Just maybe open an issue and CC me.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Any other things for Eric before we move on? Okay. So Sen, you're up with test infra.
I'm looking at Jenkins now. Seems the shard Jenkins is down again. Yeah. Well, I'll work with someone to get it up as soon as possible. But one big retro is to move out of Jenkins 4.19.
Can I ask just like a general question here first? I hope I don't have robot voice. My computer's acting a little weird. I'm trying to figure out how we can more appropriately escalate the submit queue being blocked beyond just send. So I was trying to ask about this in the SIG testing channel yesterday, where I said, hey, I know sends test info on call, so I notified him, and I filed an issue in the test info repo, but organically we kept having to come ping people in Slack. So I had no formal like status, place to check ongoing status of what's going on. I sort of have to divine this by looking at a number of different dashboards and GitHub queries with labels. Like the thing I noticed this morning that showed me we're not in a good place is we have 15 open PRs with LGTM and approved. Those all should be going through unless they're like wildly failing tests, but that seems like a large number. So I'm just trying to figure out what's the appropriate escalation path here.
I think ping testing from call is the first step. And if, like, for example, I cannot figure out, I probably will escalate to Eric as he is the team lead.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate the effort that the two of you put in. I'm just wondering if there's any way we can get more help or more visibility without having to constantly ping people.
Wait, Emma, sorry, I'm the escalation point for this?
I think he's talking about
Eric Feda.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure. Had a mini heart attack there.
Well, I mean, we don't have to belabor the point if this pace is working for everybody else, but I mean, based on the number of PRs that we have open, a number of issues would have been closed today had those PRs actually gone through. I know we sort of swept through and pinged all the issues, and a number of related PRs were there, just ready to close the issue, but they haven't been merged for a while now because of a variety of issues.
Yeah, I can second Aaron's frustration. We've tried to do retest, test all, and all kinds of stuff, and nothing seems to be helping. I did a bunch last night. I woke up in the morning, the same things were still there, broken, and it's not because of anything that was there in the PR itself.
Retest will be automatic. Like there will be a bot that will retest for you. Like
yeah,
at this point, like pending, like the backlog is not a good idea.
Right, and that's a good example of where increased visibility could help us out. Where like if people spamming retest on PRs just because that's the way they've always done it is a bad thing to do right now, because the Jenkins queue is really, really large and it's going to make the problem worse. We should know about that, but we don't really have that kind of visibility, right? So I'm just trying to figure out like what's the right channel to make sure we're all on the same page here about when and how we should be treating the submit queue.
Right. Yesterday I was asking the question, should we stop everybody from doing the retest or test all? And I didn't get an answer, and I wasn't sure who I should be asking.
I think we can, we probably can turn off the, like, make the retest bot to run like less often. But to me, it seems some Jenkins.
So I think the thing that would be useful here that Aaron, I think, is alluding to is, better communication, which I definitely agree with. I think it would be good if SIG testing and the test gen for on-call rotation develops a better policy around, having a overarching issue as well as sort of a, defined set of updates, right? Like we could send, really we should be testing the test info team, or the SIG testing team should be posting, here is the status, here is what we're working on, and then a few hours later, probably at least once a day, maybe a couple times a day, saying here's what's going on, here are the, a couple issues you can look at. And I think that since we don't have that, having Aaron just ping send and or me is probably not the most efficient way of getting status, nor the most clear. So I think I think that'd be a good conversation for the SIG testing meeting. I don't think we have a very formal process for communicating that, and we should develop one.
Okay, we can take it up over there. That sounds fair.
Okay. This got into what I was worried about yesterday, which is it almost feels like we need a daily stand-up or something where people who need to know what's going on can just have a quick chat about what's going on. So that was kind of the idea behind putting the test stuff as a specific agenda item here. Okay, moving on. Any other issues there before we move on?
Wait, I have a quick question. How do you see like the last merge is 9 hours ago? To me, it looks fine from that page. And QDEPS is like 4 right now. Now it's 5. If you click the history page.
So the queue depth is low, but if I look for the last time the word merged showed up in the history page, it's about 1:17 a.m. Pacific time, which is roughly 9 hours ago. And then the other thing is I linked an example PR in the meeting notes. So the other sign of unhealthiness is a lot of timed out waiting for PR, what is it? Timed out waiting for PR number to finish testing in this page. Once I start seeing that pop up, that tells me either Jenkins is not running jobs or the queue to Jenkins is too large. And so Jenkins is taking too long to actually kick jobs off. Another way that I notice this is if I look at Prow's page, a lot of the pre-submit jobs don't have the little hamburger icon next to them for logs, which tells me that the job is queued up. Prow knows about it, but Jenkins hasn't kicked it off yet.
Prow's queue only have like 10-ish jobs, right? Is the history page looks right for you, Jace?
I'm sorry, what?
I would say, no, I would agree with what Aaron is saying. If you check the history page, our tests take about 1 or 2 hours to run. And so there should be either a merge or a test failed every 2 hour or two. And it looks like it's going from, we merged at 1 a.m. and then, although I think the time zone is probably going to be different on Jace's computer, so it'll be slightly off.
Eastern.
But, basically we have, there should be something from at least after 10 saying something happened. Also, if you check the prow batched merge, like if you check the prow logs and then go to batched, to me it looks like it's hard to tell which ones of these are failing. It looks like, but it doesn't look like tests are running that frequently, which I think is an indication that Jenkins is unhappy.
So one other concrete example I linked in the meeting notes, and a couple of the PRs that have LGTM approved that are open right now show this as well. Some of the job contexts show error checking submit queue or error checking queue status. Wait, let me find the thing I pasted. Yeah, error checking queue status for some of the things. And then some of the other job contexts have a little X next to them and the text says Jenkins job failed. But if I click on the details link next to that, it takes me through to a Kubernetes page that says everything's okay. So I feel like there's just a discrepancy somewhere and some weirdness to sort out. And I don't know if I want to belabor the rest of the time sorting this out here.
Right. And one other place I look is the Kubernetes commits master URL. I go there, I take a look. The last one was 9 hours ago, and it seemed like a batch of 5 that went in at the same time. And before that, we had just 2 merges from yesterday.
Yeah, and so now that we walked through all the different places we looked to define signal, this is where I'm like, be more open about this.
Okay, I added a retro item there because that's definitely something that we need to go over before 1.9. Anything else before we move on? Okay, I'm going to just breeze through these real quick. Documentation and marketing and features. We're down to 3 missing docs. One from Piotr has a ETA of today. Still waiting for an update from Casey Davenport on the 2 SIG network ones. Ihor reorganized the feature spreadsheet this morning and had some really interesting findings that we're going to go over after the half-hour mark in the SIG PM meeting, which will be happening immediately adjacent to this one. But just briefly, as I had predicted, some organic themes have emerged. And one of the most interesting is that 1.8 actually may be a stabilization release of sorts, since most of the alpha feature functionality is not net new, but is enhancement and extrapolation of existing stable features. So that's a really interesting thing, that this era that we're in as far as the evolution of Kubernetes may be that most of the innovation is happening in conjunction with the enhancement of existing features, which is actually a very positive sign of maturity of the project. And so SIG PM meeting, as I mentioned, will be following this in about 3 minutes or so. Release notes update. I don't have anything specific other than that we're just trying to remind all the SIGs to update their themes and to also finish up this draft that we're trying to get merged. Is there anybody here from documentation that wants to speak to any of these things? Okay. Lastly, I'm going to open the floor for a couple minutes here. Is there anybody who has announcements, open mics, asks for help, whatever that needs to be right now?
Hello, can I give some updates to the GKE/GCI tests, the release 1.8 blogging test?
Sure.
Yeah, basically I have contacted all the owners, test owners of the failing tests, and it should be under good coverage. Most of the tests will be fixed by end of this week or next week.
Okay. How does that relate to the lifting of code freeze? Because if it's next week, that's going to be a problem. If it's this week, that's a little better.
Oh, okay, I see. I will chase them down to ensure that most tests are fixed. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
great.
Sham, I noticed you're here and you've been putting in a lot of work towards getting the scalability related failures to go away. what's the latest on that? I'm interested, especially in the 2 scalability jobs that are still failing.
Hey, so I have a good news and a small bad news. The good news is that like the correctness tests are in a very good shape. Like as you can see on the umbrella issue, it's actually a lot of them have already been fixed by the concerned SIGs, and there are a couple of them remaining. But they're not release blockers because they're actually issues that are seen even on small clusters. So it's not really related to large clusters. So yeah, the correctness job more or less looks good. There are a few flakes, but I think that's something we can live with. And regarding the performance tests, we're actually seeing a regression. So there are 2 regressions before, and like I fixed one of them. We had some issues on the kubelet side. There were a lot of ooms, etc. seen on kubelets, which are sending a lot of events and thrashing the API server, and like the API server just couldn't take the load of events from 5,000 nodes. And like some of our tests were actually failing because of that, and that is fixed now. But there's still one more regression with high latencies for some particular API calls. I'm looking into them right now, but yeah, I think I should. It would be good if I can get some help on this from the API machinery team, because I'll actually post some of my findings from today's debugging on the issue. But it seems like more specifically the node status update. Like there are a lot of patch node status calls, and because it's 5,000. Because we run them on 5,000 nodes, and each kubelet is actually sending these patch node status pretty frequently, once every 10 seconds or so. This actually ends up becoming a huge component of the load on the API server, and the latency for those calls is actually increased. And this seems like a regression because I think it increased by about 20 times. It was like a few tens of milliseconds before. Now it's like close to a second. And this is violating our SLOs. We have the 1 second SLO for API calls, that the 99th percentile of all API calls, all kinds of API calls, has to be below a second. And it's actually violating it. Yeah. So, I mean, it is definitely a release blocker. There's no doubt about it, because like 5,000 nodes is something we've been promising since 1.6, and every release we're actually having these tests, and we cannot just let it go, because this is like not getting it fixed for the release pretty much means we don't hold our 5,000 node promise anymore. So
Shyam, did we roll out the JSON iterator?
Yeah. So I was actually just about to comment on that. I am not very sure that is the issue. Like, I'm almost 90% sure that's not related to this, because there's actually no JSON communication between like the component which is making these calls is pretty much kubelet, and kubelet uses protobufs for its communication with API server. So it's very unlikely that's the issue. But yeah, there's something else most likely related to API server or storage. But yeah,
thank you.
Looking a little deeper, yes. I'm going to update the issue with stuff that I found out today, and maybe that helps with debugging. Yeah, I'll ping a few folks from API machinery. They would be knowing much better.
Okay, thanks for the update.
Yep.
Is there anybody here from SIG API machinery that can help, or can help triage or connect or whatever for that?
I can do that. Are you specifically talking about the PRs and issues that are in 1.8?
Yes.
Yeah, this is that specific regression that he was just talking about.
Oh, sorry, I was blacked out for a moment. Can you send me a link to that?
Yep, I'm actually sending it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
working
that's the.
on issues and PRs that related to API machinery and pinging people, but I will make sure that I will follow up on that specific one.
Okay,
And
cool.
that's Mehdi, right? That's saying that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really. It took me a while actually. I had to scroll through all the ones and actually see the one who was unmuted.
Okay, cool. I've got it linked in the notes as well. All right. Any other things before we move on?
Can I say something about a GKI test again? I
Sure,
think I give the wrong updates just now. For the release 1.8 blocking, all the tests are passing. I will keep track. I will keep on tracking down if any new failing test appears. What I meant is the release 1.8 upgrade skill. There are some tests still need to be fixed, but it is still under good coverage. I'm confident that most of them can be fixed. I mean, all of them can be fixed by end of this week.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a critical date. So thank you so much for handling that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, anything else? Okay, so what's going to happen now is I'm going to stop the recording, which is the end of the release Burndown meeting. And what will happen is we're going to switch over to SIG PM.